I'm Lucas Bennett, 45 years old, a senior systems engineer at Apex Technologies in Austin, Texas. For 17 years, I've been the backbone of the IT department, from the days of screeching dial-up modems to building complex cloud systems for thousands of clients. I'm not one for showboating, not the type to chase the spotlight in meetings. I'm the guy in the background, training every young engineer, recovering every lost file, working weekends and holidays without asking for a promotion or a pat on the back. But this morning, everything came crashing down. I arrived at the office early, as always, when the first sunlight filtered through the glass of the 15-story building. The IT room was silent, just the steady hum of server fans. I checked the system logs, ensuring last night's update didn't cause any issues. But today, the air felt heavy. I got an email from Ryan Caldwell, my new boss, asking to meet at 9 a.m. Ryan, 36, is the kind of manager who loves buzzwords like optimization and calls us IT resources. I didn't complain, but for weeks, his closed-door meetings and evasive glances had me uneasy. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. When I walked into Ryan's office, Rebecca Lane from HR was already there, holding a stack of papers, her eyes offering no greeting. Ryan looked at his desk and said flatly, "Lucas, after 17 years, we're eliminating your position." His voice was even, emotionless, like reading a memo. "Clean out your desk by the end of the day." His words hit like a cold, sharp blade. Unexpected. 17 years through 3 CEOs, 3 company mergers, sleepless nights saving data. Gone in a single sentence. I felt Rebecca watching me, but I didn't look at her. I nodded, just once. "I understand completely," I said, my voice calm, then walked out of the room without another word. Back at my desk, I felt the entire IT department's eyes on me. The young engineers, most of whom I'd trained, glanced over then quickly looked back at their screens. News spreads like wildfire. I started packing, item by item, like boxing up a piece of my life. A family photo frame, a picture of me, Claire, Emma, and Noah from a trip to Lake Travis. A lopsided ceramic coffee mug, Emma made in middle school art class, which I always kept on my desk. A small cactus, miraculously surviving 17 years under fluorescent lights. I placed them in a cardboard box, my hands moving slowly, methodically, like how I handle lines of code. Laura Mitchell from marketing appeared suddenly, her face tight, eyes flashing with anger. "Lucas, I just heard," she said, her voice trembling. "This is ridiculous. You practically built this place." I shrugged, giving a faint smile to calm her. "The company's changing direction, Laura." But she didn't stop. "Changing? After everything you've done? Not a single warning." Her voice rose, drawing stares from others. I put a hand on her shoulder, saying softly, "It's fine, Laura. Really." But inside, I knew it wasn't fine. 17 years isn't a small thing. I'd been here through every up and down, and now they were tossing me out like outdated hardware. As I carried my box out of the office, Ryan stepped out of the meeting room, watching me. No goodbye, no handshake, just a cold supervisory stare to ensure I actually left. I stepped into the elevator, feeling like I was abandoning a part of my life. My employee badge, renewed 16 times, was handed to the security guard in the lobby. I got in my car, sat for a moment, and looked at the Apex Technologies building one last time. The 15-story structure, where I'd spent nearly half my life, now felt alien, like a painting that no longer belonged to me. I started the engine and drove home, my heart heavy but emotions held in check. Back at our suburban house near Lake Travis, I saw Claire working at the kitchen table, papers from the bank scattered around. She looked up, instantly sensing something was wrong. "They fired me," I said, my voice calm but weighted. Claire put down her pen, walked over, and hugged me. "How could they do that, after 17 years?" she asked, her voice full of outrage. I recounted the meeting, keeping my tone even, but Claire knew I was hiding the pain. "We'll be okay," she said, squeezing my hand tightly. I nodded, but inside, I wasn't sure. When Emma and Noah came home, I tried to act normal. Emma, 21 and in college, asked, "Dad, you're home early?" I smiled, saying, "Yeah, I got a bit of a break." Noah, 16, fiddling with his phone, didn't ask anything, but I caught him glancing at me, as if sensing something. I didn't want the kids to worry, but the sting of betrayal lingered. 17 years, and they discarded me like I never existed. But as I left the office, I knew I held something they didn't expect. I knew every nook of the system, every admin code, every hidden secret. They thought I'd vanish quietly, but they didn't know tomorrow would be very interesting. Sitting in my car, watching the Apex Technologies building fade in the rearview mirror, I felt a strange void. 17 years wasn't just a number. It was a part of my life. The days and nights I poured sweat into building systems, keeping the company steady through every storm. I was there when Apex was just a small office in suburban Austin, when servers buzzed and the internet crawled like a snail. I watched the company rise through 3 mergers, 3 CEOs, and countless innovations that leadership eagerly adopted then abandoned months later. I turned down tempting offers from Dell, IBM, even a Silicon Valley startup, because of my loyalty to Apex. To me, the company wasn't just a workplace, it was like a second home. Back home, I stepped into the living room, where Claire sat with a pile of bank papers. She looked at me, her eyes soft but worried. "You okay?" she asked, her voice quiet. I shrugged, sank into an armchair, and grabbed a cold beer from the fridge. "Just a change," I replied, taking a sip. But we both knew I was covering up. Claire once joked that the servers were my second family, and she wasn't entirely wrong. I knew every system, every workaround, every quick fix that leadership never noticed. I'd helped Apex survive mergers, failed upgrades, and nights when servers crashed, sending the company into a panic. But now, I was cast aside like a faulty line of code. I thought about Emma and Noah, our 2 kids. Emma, 21, in college, nearing graduation. Noah, 16, obsessed with basketball and dreaming of making the school team. When I started at Apex, Emma was a kindergarten kid, scribbling on newspaper scraps. Now she was grown, and I still remembered the evenings reading her bedtime stories after fixing a critical system bug. Claire and I built this life. The house near Lake Travis, a mortgage with a few years left, Emma's college tuition, with the belief that Apex was a solid foundation. But this morning, that belief shattered. What gnawed at me wasn't just the firing, but how it happened. The atmosphere at Apex had shifted weeks ago. I felt it, like an engineer senses a system error before it crashes. Ryan Caldwell's closed-door meetings with other managers, the young colleagues' evasive glances, the system upgrade emails that stopped including me. Ryan, with his MBA and slick management style, called the IT department resources instead of people. He loved talking about future-proofing and efficiency, words that sounded good, but often meant doing more with less. I tried explaining the system's complexity to him, the custom software I wrote, the old architecture only I understood. But Ryan always looked past me, as if I were a relic from a bygone tech era. 6 months ago, things got clearer when Travis Holt, an outside consultant, showed up. Travis, with his expensive suit and confident smile, flaunted a degree from a prestigious school on LinkedIn. He and Ryan held private meetings in the conference room, their voices lowering whenever I passed by. 3 months ago, I noticed my admin access being quietly altered, not blatant, just small tweaks to system controls. I could have protested, but instead, I watched. I documented every change, like I always did with system logs. Not because I suspected anything at first, but because of an engineer's meticulous habit. The more I thought, the more I realized I wasn't just a fired employee. I was the most critical person in that building. Not because I was better than anyone, but because I was the only one who knew the entire system. I'd set up security audit protocols years ago after an internal scandal, at the legal team's request. I had copies of everything, internal emails, meeting minutes, even data no regular employee should see. The young engineers, talented as they were, didn't know how to access admin codes buried 3 layers deep, didn't understand the custom software I wrote, didn't know how to run the old architecture Apex still relied on. Sitting in the armchair, cold beer in hand, I felt a spark in my mind. They'd made a mistake thinking firing me was an easy way to discard an old resource. They didn't know I'd seen what they tried to hide, and I had proof. Claire noticed the shift in my expression. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, sitting beside me. I took another sip of beer, gave a slight smile. "Just changes on," I replied. But inside, I knew things were about to get interesting. Tomorrow, or maybe the day after, they'd realize how badly they'd underestimated me. The next morning, I woke up without an alarm clock. No commute, no computer screen, waiting at Apex's office. The house near Lake Travis was quiet, just birds chirping outside, and Claire preparing breakfast in the kitchen. But the stillness didn't relax me. It reminded me of the void Apex left after 17 years. I sat in my small home office, in front of my personal laptop, feeling like an engineer unplugged from the system. Claire brought me a coffee, setting it beside me without a word. After 19 years of marriage, she knew when I needed space. "I'm heading to the store," she said before leaving. "Need anything?" I shook my head, my eyes fixed on the screen. Once the door closed, I opened the bottom desk drawer, pulling out a small USB drive, one of several I kept secure. Apex's policies strictly forbade taking data off-site, but years ago, when the legal team asked me to set up an audit system to track insider threats, I'd insisted on off-site backups. They signed off, then promptly forgot. I plugged the USB into my laptop, opening the data files. It was my treasure trove. Internal emails, meeting minutes, system logs, and even financial records. No regular employee should access. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I knew where to start. I opened the financial transaction logs, a familiar task that now felt different. Within a few hours, I spotted an anomaly: recurring payments to a company called Nova Ventures, starting 18 months ago. In total, nearly $1.9 million had been transferred, with amounts growing each month. The transactions were labeled software services or system consulting, but the sums were 15 to 20% above market rates. I cross-checked the contract database, but found no trace of Nova Ventures. That wasn't normal. Apex tightly controlled its vendors, yet this company seemed to appear out of nowhere. I searched for Nova Ventures. It was registered just a year ago, with an address leading to a UPS store in suburban Austin. No website, no employees, no online presence beyond a bare-bones legal filing. But what stunned me was the owner's name: Travis Ramsey. A quick social media search confirmed my suspicion. Thomas was Edward Ramsey's brother-in-law, Apex's CFO. My heart raced. This wasn't a system glitch. It was deliberate fraud. I dug deeper, checking internal emails from the backup. A thread between Edward and Ryan Caldwell caught my attention. They didn't directly mention Nova Ventures, but used vague phrases like budget adjustments and ensuring timely payments. One email from Ryan, sent 3 months ago, read, "We need to finalize the IT restructuring before next quarter." I realized restructuring was their way of pushing me out of the picture. I was the only one who could spot these irregular transactions, thanks to my habit of checking logs that no one else cared about anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from Kevin Walsh, a young engineer I'd trained. "Really sorry about yesterday, Lucas. What they did to you is total BS. Travis Holt's already moved into your office." I set the phone down, not responding right away. Kevin's a good kid, but he knows nothing about the old systems or the deeply buried admin codes. None of the young IT crew does. Travis, the consultant with his expensive suit, was probably brought in to modernize, or more likely to erase my traces. I contacted Laura Mitchell from marketing through an encrypted app. Laura had worked with me on a cybersecurity project, and I trusted her. "Laura, ever heard of Nova Ventures?" I texted. She replied quickly, "Never, but I've seen Ryan and Travis in closed-door meetings with Edward a lot. They're rushing to wipe out old access, including ours." Laura's message confirmed my suspicions. They were trying to cover something up, and firing me was part of the plan. As I was saving more evidence to another USB drive, an email from Rebecca Lane popped up. "Dear Mr. Bennett," she wrote, "we've received information that you've been contacting Apex employees. This may violate your separation agreement. Please cease our contact and adhere to your confidentiality obligations. Further actions may result in legal confidentiality obligations. Further actions may result in legal consequences." I read the email, giving a faint smirk. I hadn't signed any agreement, and Rebecca knew it. This was their game: intimidation, isolation, silencing me. But they didn't realize the quiet guy in intimidation, isolation, silencing me. But they didn't realize the quiet guy in the corner had seen everything. They say so because they thought I saw nothing. I leaned back in my chair, the anger fading, replaced by a quick fragile focus. For 17 years I'd solved problems, fixed systems, protect data. I was the reliable one, the one who didn't make waves. And they'd thrown me out like waves. And they'd thrown me out like obsolete hardware. But now I had something they didn't expect. Proof of a multi-million-dollar fraud. Claire returned from the store. They didn't expect. Proof of a multi-million-dollar fraud. Claire returned from the store. Looking at me. "You found something, didn't you?" she asked. Her eyes shut. I nodded, saying nothing. She gave a slight smile, as if she knew I'd started a chess game.
Apex wouldn't see coming. Sitting in my small home office, I felt a shift within myself. I'm in my small home, Keegan and my standing headache. Keegan, 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 Keegan.
The discovery of Nova Ventures and its link to Edward Ramsey's brother-in-law wasn't just a clue. It was evidence of a systematic fraud, and I knew I held the key to exposing it all. But I couldn't act rashly. 17 years at Apex Technologies had taught me that, in tech as in life, one wrong move could bring everything crashing down. I needed a plan, precise, discreet, and undeniable. I started by securing the evidence. I copied all the data from the USB internal emails, transaction logs, Nova Ventures registration records, onto 2 other hard drives, one locked in the home safe, the other sent to a safety deposit box at a bank in downtown Austin. I set up an automated system on my personal server. If I didn't log in within 48 hours, a batch of emails would go to the SEC, IRS, and 3 major news outlets, complete with all the evidence. I didn't want to use this measure, but I needed a shield to protect myself and my family. Apex could play the intimidation game, but I wouldn't let them control this chessboard. I returned to the data, digging deeper for other transaction patterns. After hours of analysis, I uncovered an older fraud, from 3 years ago, right after Edward became CFO. Another company, Blue Horizon Group, had received consulting payments totaling $2.8 million over 2 years. The invoices were inflated, sometimes for services that didn't exist. I looked it up and found Blue Horizon Group was registered under Patricia Ramsey, Edward's wife. The company had no website, no employees, just a virtual address. But what stunned me was Ryan Caldwell's role. A chain of internal emails showed Ryan had helped approve these payments, in exchange for an increased IT budget, while other departments faced cuts. They'd replaced the previous IT director, who started asking questions about spending, and brought in Ryan to keep things smooth. It all became clear. Edward and Ryan weren't just embezzling through Nova Ventures. They'd built a sophisticated fraud system, using shell companies to siphon money from Apex. Travis Holt, the consultant, was likely brought in to eliminate me, the only one who could detect the pattern. They thought firing me would erase the threat, that I was just an aging engineer clueless about modern finance. They were wrong. I opened the email editor, starting a letter to the board, listing every detail of the payments, the shell companies, the ties to Edward's family, and Ryan's role. But my finger paused over the send button. Too direct. An email like that could be dismissed as the bitter accusations of a fired employee. I needed leverage, a way to make them unable to ignore it. I deleted the draft, thinking of another plan. I created a fake email account, designed to look like an internal Apex address, but not listed in the main directory. Using a proxy server, I ensured the email couldn't be traced back to me. Then I drafted a short email to Ryan. Subject line: financial irregularities, urgent review required. The content revealed just enough to rattle him. A summary of the payments to Nova Ventures, the amounts and transaction dates, but no mention of the link to Edward's brother-in-law. If Ryan was complicit, he'd panic. If not, he'd investigate. Either way, I'd learn more. I hit send, then waited. Less than 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Ryan's number. I let it go to voicemail. His voice, usually confident, was now tense. "Lucas, we need to talk about your email right now. Call me back." I didn't call back. Instead, I checked my personal server, ensuring everything was secure. The first move was made, and I knew the game had begun. Less than an hour later, an email from Rebecca Lane arrived. "Dear Mr. Bennett," she wrote, "we've received concerning communication from you that may violate your separation agreement. Please cease all contact with Apex employees and adhere to your confidentiality obligations. Further actions may result in legal consequences." I read the email, smirking faintly. I hadn't signed any agreement, and Rebecca knew it. This was their usual tactic: intimidation, isolation, silencing me. But they didn't realize I was already several steps ahead. I leaned back in my chair, feeling like an engineer who just found the core flaw in a system. For 17 years, I'd fixed, protected, and kept Apex standing. They thought firing me was an easy way to remove a nuisance, but they didn't know I'd seen it all. Claire walked in, carrying grocery bags. She looked at me, her eyes sharp. "You're up to something, aren't you?" she asked, setting the bags down. I nodded, giving a slight smile. "Just preparing, I said. Claire didn't ask more, but her smile told me she trusted me. I turned back to the laptop, continuing to prepare for tomorrow, the day the board would meet, the day everything would change. After sending the first email to Ryan Caldwell, I knew I'd stirred the hornet's nest. My phone kept buzzing, but I didn't answer. Ryan's voicemail, his voice tense, was the first sign my plan was working. I sat in my home office, double-checking the automated evidence-sending system I'd set up. Everything was secure. I wasn't about to let Apex Technologies control this game, but I knew they wouldn't sit still. At noon, my phone buzzed again. Edward Ramsey, Apex's CFO. I let it go to voicemail but decided to listen this time. Edward's voice was calm, controlled, like he was negotiating a contract. "Lucas, this is Edward Ramsey. We should talk about your concerns. I think there's a misunderstanding here." I smirked faintly, wondering if he really thought I was that naive. "A misunderstanding?" I replied, my voice even. Edward continued, "Transitions are always tough. If you have questions about company finances, there are proper channels, like the board." I cut him off. "The board will be very interested in Nova Ventures and your brother-in-law, Thomas." A sharp intake of breath on the other end told me I'd hit the mark. Edward's tone hardened. "You're making a serious mistake. We can work this out. A generous severance, a letter of recommendation, whatever you need," I replied curtly. "Goodbye, Edward," and hung up. Less than 10 minutes later, an email from Rebecca Lane appeared. "Dear Mr. Bennett," she wrote, "we've received communication from you that seriously violates your separation agreement. Attached is a new severance offer, requiring you to sign a full confidentiality agreement regarding all company matters." I opened the attachment. The severance was double the original offer. They were panicking, but still thought I was just a simple blackmailer. I deleted the email, not replying. I hadn't signed any agreement, and Rebecca knew it. This was just another move to isolate me. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Kevin Walsh, the young engineer I'd trained. "Lucas, they're saying you sent some email about financial fraud. Travis called an emergency meeting. Everyone's freaking out. They're wiping your access, even historical data. What's going on?" I read the message, feeling sorry for Kevin. He was caught in the crossfire, unaware of the full story. I texted back briefly, "Don't get involved, Kevin. Just watch." I didn't want him dragged into this, but his info confirmed Ryan and Travis were trying to erase traces. A desperate move. In the afternoon, Claire came back from school, seeing me still at my desk. "Something up?" she asked, noticing the tension on my face. I told her about Edward's call and Rebecca's email. Claire frowned, but stayed calm. "They're scared of you," she said, her voice certain. "They know you've got something." I nodded, grateful for her quiet support. But when Emma and Noah got home, I saw their worried looks. Emma, sharper than I expected, asked, "Dad, is the company giving you trouble?" I smiled, reassuring her. "Just work stuff, kiddo. I'll handle it." Noah, usually quiet, looked at me longer than usual, as if wanting to say something. I knew I had to end this, not just for me, but for my family. I decided on the next step. I contacted Margaret Foster, a board member I'd worked with on a cybersecurity project years ago. Margaret, 58, was one of the few on the board who actually read audit reports and asked questions. I messaged her through an encrypted app. "Margaret, I need to meet you. 15 minutes. It's critical," she replied quickly. "Zilker Park, 3 p.m. tomorrow. That work?" I confirmed, feeling a wave of relief. Margaret was someone I trusted to hand over the evidence, but the pressure didn't stop. As I prepared documents for the meeting, a knock came at the door. Claire answered, then returned with a tense look. "Travis Holt's outside. Wants to see you." I stood, walking to the door. Travis, in his usual suit, flashed an awkward smile. "Lucas, just want to talk. Maybe we can let this little thing slide." I crossed my arms, staring him down. "Little thing? Like $1.9 million to Nova Ventures?" Travis's face froze, his smile vanishing. Claire, standing behind me, said coldly, "You should leave, and don't come back." Travis stepped back, muttering something, then walked away. Claire took my hand, her eyes resolute. "You're doing the right thing," she said. I returned to my desk, checking the fake email account and USB drive once more. Everything was ready for the meeting with Margaret. Ryan, Edward, and Travis were trying to put out the fire, but they didn't know I'd poured more fuel. Tomorrow, when the board meets, I'll deliver the decisive blow. I looked out the window, seeing the fiery red sunset over Lake Travis. For the first time since being fired, I felt in control. The morning at Zilker Park was peaceful, with lush green trees and chirping birds by the lake. But inside me, there was no peace. I sat in my car, parked in a secluded corner, holding an envelope with a printed summary and a USB drive containing all the evidence. Internal emails, transaction logs, shell company records for Nova Ventures and Blue Horizon Group, and direct ties to Edward Ramsey and Ryan Caldwell. Today was the board's emergency meeting to review quarterly finances, and I knew it was the perfect moment to strike the final blow. I saw Margaret Foster approaching, her petite frame exuding the toughness of a seasoned board member. Margaret, 58, had worked with me on a cybersecurity project years ago. She was one of the few on the board who actually read reports and asked sharp questions. I stepped out of the car, envelope in hand. "Lucas, it's been a while," she said, her eyes curious. "Heard you left Apex. What's this about?" I replied briefly, "Not by choice." "Margaret, I need 15 minutes of your time. It's critical." She nodded, leading me to a bench under the shade of a tree. I handed her the envelope. "This is everything," I said. "Dates, amounts, connections. Nova Ventures and Blue Horizon Group, owned by Edward Ramsey's relatives. Nearly $5 million embezzled over 3 years. Ryan knew and helped. I don't want my job back, or money. I just want the right people to know the truth." Margaret looked at me, her expression serious. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you actually read audit reports," I replied. "I saw you in meetings. You asked questions." She nodded slowly, tucking the envelope into her bag. "There's an emergency meeting this afternoon. If this is what you say, there'll be serious consequences." I nodded. "I'm counting on it." Back in the car, I checked my laptop one last time. The fake email account, designed to look like an internal Apex address, was ready. I'd prepared a full report, 20 pages with charts, emails, and links to Edward's family, along with a brief note. Before approving Q2 bonuses, read this. The email was programmed to go to the entire board at exactly 8 a.m., just before the meeting. I hit the confirm command, closed the laptop, and drove home. Now it was just a matter of waiting. At 8 a.m. sharp, the email went out. I sat in the living room armchair, a coffee mug cooling in my hand. My phone started buzzing, unknown numbers, likely board members' assistants. I let them go to voicemail. I didn't need to talk. The report spoke for me. Around 9:30, a text from Kevin Walsh came in. "Police just showed up at Apex. Edward and Ryan got called into a separate meeting. Travis looks like he's about to be sick. What did you do?" I didn't reply. Everything was unfolding as I'd predicted. Less than 30 minutes later, the phone buzzed again. Henry Cole, Apex's general counsel. I picked up, but stayed silent. "Mr. Bennett, this is Henry Cole from legal," he said, his voice cautious. "We need you to come to the company immediately to discuss the information you sent the board." I replied calmly. "No need for an in-person meeting. Everything I know is in the report." Henry pressed. "This really requires a face-to-face discussion." I cut him off. "No, it doesn't. All the evidence has been sent. Copies are in multiple safe locations. If anything happens to me or my family, they'll go to the SEC, IRS, and 3 news outlets." Silence. "Mr. Bennett," Henry said slowly, "the board is taking this very seriously. They've suspended several executives for investigation." I replied. "I've cooperated fully by sending the report. My part's done." I hung up. Claire walked in, seeing me with the phone. "They're calling, aren't they?" she asked. I nodded, telling her about Henry's call and Kevin's text. She sat beside me, taking my hand. "You did the right thing," she said, her eyes steady. I smiled, grateful for her quiet support. But inside, I knew the game wasn't over. Edward, Ryan, and Travis were crumbling. But they wouldn't give up easily. I drove to a small diner 20 miles outside Austin, not wanting to be easily found today. Over lunch, I checked the news on my phone. A local article had just posted. "Apex Technologies executives under investigation for financial irregularities." No names yet, but I knew they'd surface soon. My phone buzzed again. A text from Laura Mitchell. "Lucas, the whole company's in shock. Thank you." I smiled, pocketing the phone. Today, I'd turned the tables, but I knew tomorrow, Apex would face the full consequences of their greed. That afternoon, I sat in a small diner 20 miles from Austin, following the news on my phone. The local article had updated. Senior Apex Technologies executives probed for financial fraud, estimated losses in millions. No specific names, but I knew Edward Ramsey, Ryan Caldwell, and Travis Holt were facing the storm. Texts from Kevin Walsh kept coming. Edward confessed something to the cops. Tried pinning it on Ryan. Travis is gone somewhere. The company's going nuts. I didn't reply, but a sense of satisfaction rose. The chess game I'd started was nearing its end. Another call came. Margaret Foster. I answered. "Lucas, it's a complete uproar," she said straight off. No preamble. Edward confessed partially when confronted with your evidence. Tried to downplay it by blaming Ryan. Ryan's denying everything, but the board doesn't buy it. Travis is gone. Heard he was caught at the airport. She paused, her tone more serious. Initial audits show nearly $5.2 million embezzled over 3 years. Thanks to you, the company avoided worse damage. I nodded, though she couldn't see. The board wants to meet you, Margaret continued, not just to thank you. They're creating a new role, Chief Information Security Officer, reporting directly to the board. They want you for it. The offer caught me off guard, though I'd considered the possibility. Go back to Apex, the place that fired me, after 17 years. I replied, I'll think about it. Margaret chuckled softly. I know you're not easily swayed, but the board's serious. I hung up, back at the diner, my mind swirling with options. At home, I told Claire everything. She sat across from me in the armchair, listening without interrupting. When I finished, she asked, "What do you want, Lucas?" The question hit me hard. I'd achieved justice. Edward, Ryan, and Travis were collapsing, likely facing criminal charges, but returning to Apex meant stepping back into the place that betrayed me. Could I do it? Did I want to? I need time to decide, I said finally. Claire nodded, taking my hand. Whatever you choose, I trust you, she said, and that trust lightened my heart. That night, I got 2 emails from rival companies, one from Oracle, another from an Austin tech startup, both offering higher positions with signing bonuses. Word of my exit from Apex had spread, and my 17-year career wasn't as invisible as I'd thought, but I set them aside. This wasn't about finding a new job. This was about finishing what Apex started. The next morning, I received the board's formal offer. They proposed the Chief Information Security Officer role, with significant authority. I drafted a document listing my conditions, full audit powers over all departments, veto rights on tech-related financial decisions, and an independent budget. This wasn't ambition. It was to ensure no one could repeat what Edward and Ryan did. I sent the document with a note. These terms are non-negotiable. The board has until noon to respond. At 11:45, my phone buzzed. Margaret called. The board accepted all your conditions, she said, a hint of surprise in her voice. They want you back, Lucas, not just for the evidence, because they know you're the only one who can protect the company. I paused, then said, I'll confirm soon. I hung up, looking out the window at the sunlight on Lake Travis. Justice was served, but the future remained an open question. 6 months later, I sat in my new corner office at Apex Technologies headquarters, looking out at Austin's shimmering skyline under the sun. This office, with its large windows and walnut desk, was a far cry from my old fluorescent-lit cubicle. The Chief Information Security Officer role, reporting directly to the board, gave me authority I never had in my prior 17 years. But what satisfied me wasn't the title or the view. It was the shift in how people saw me. The young engineers, who once looked away when I was fired, now stopped to greet me with respect. They knew what I'd done, knew I could have destroyed Apex, but chose to save it. The fraud's fallout was clear. Edward Ramsey got 7 years in prison after pleading guilty to embezzlement, cooperating with police for a reduced sentence. Ryan Caldwell kept denying all charges, but my report's evidence left him no escape. His trial was approaching, and no one believed he was innocent. Travis Holt, caught at the airport, was extradited from Mexico to the U.S. to face accomplice charges. The final audit confirmed $5.2 million embezzled, but most was recovered, enough for Apex to avoid severe losses. The company was rebounding, and I was part of the reason. I promoted Kevin Walsh, the young engineer I'd trained, to manage the IT team's daily operations. Kevin had potential, just needed someone to trust and guide him. Old colleagues, like Laura Mitchell, now often stopped by my office, bringing coffee and talking about the company's positive changes. No more secret meetings, no more evasive glances. Apex was more transparent now, and I ensured it stayed that way with new security protocols. At noon, Claire appeared at my office door, her smile radiant. "Ready for lunch?" she asked. I nodded, grabbed my jacket, and walked through the IT department. Conversations paused slightly as I passed, not out of fear, but respect. Claire held my hand in the elevator, asking, "Are you happy?" I thought for a moment. The anger that flared when I was fired had faded. What remained wasn't quite happiness, but satisfaction, the feeling of doing something right. "I'm good," I replied, and she smiled, knowing I meant it. Outside, warm sunlight hit our faces as we walked to a nearby restaurant. My phone buzzed, a text from Margaret Foster. "Board just approved your new security budget. Unanimous vote." I smiled, pocketing the phone. No arguments, no questions, just trust. Claire noticed my expression. "What's that?" she asked. "Nothing," I replied. "Just thinking about bridges." She laughed, not pressing further. That night, I opened my laptop and posted a single update to LinkedIn, dormant for ages. Never burn bridges, just let them collapse under the weight of their own greed. Within minutes, messages from old colleagues flooded in. "You did it," one wrote. "The quiet guy took them all down." Another commented. Word had spread about the systems engineer, who toppled 3 senior executives, and I was no longer invisible. Sitting in the living room, looking out at the twinkling Lake Travis, I reflected on this journey. Some bridges collapsed from greed, like Edward, Ryan, and Travis caused, but others, when repaired, become stronger than ever. I'd rebuilt my bridge, not just for myself, but for Apex, my family, and those who trusted me. This time, I built it right. The story of Lucas Bennett at Apex Technologies in Austin, Texas, reflects real-world issues in today's U.S. tech workplace, where long-term loyalty can be overlooked amid pressures for modernization and profit. Lucas, a 45-year-old systems engineer, was abruptly fired after 17 years of dedication. But he used his expertise and meticulousness to expose a financial fraud by Edward Ramsey, Ryan Caldwell, and Travis Holt, saving the company from significant losses. His journey, from feeling betrayed to reclaiming justice and rebuilding the bridge of his career, offers profound lessons about perseverance, the value of expertise, and the importance of ethics in work. In today's U.S. tech environment, where companies like Silicon Valley giants or Austin startups often prioritize innovation and cost-cutting, employees must learn to protect their value, like Lucas did. He didn't just rely on loyalty, but leveraged technical skills, log analysis, data backups, and careful preparation, fake email account, automated system to confront injustice. Always document your work. Build a network of connections like Lucas with Margaret Foster, and continuously update skills to stay indispensable. Moreover, Lucas is calm under pressure from Rebecca Lane, and support from his family, Claire, Emma, Noah, highlight that maintaining ethics and leaning on loved ones are key to overcoming career crises. Finally, Lucas's LinkedIn post, "Never burn bridges, just let them collapse under the weight of their own greed," reminds us that justice and professionalism will prevail, but only if you persist and act rightly. Subscribe to the channel to follow stories of justice and perseverance like Lucas Bennett's journey. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.